أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, brothers and sisters in Islam, brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again today I thought of doing a Q&A, a question and answer session, but still I remembered there's a very important part that we've never touched upon, and most of the time when we miss to touch upon this important part, the historical aspect of Islam and Africa is missed. This subject concerns the immigration or immigration of very famous Sahaba, almost 110, whom during the 5th year of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's prophethood, these companions went to the Prophet because of the brutality that the Quraysh were doing to them, and asked the Prophet to advise them on where to move to so that they can practice Islam peacefully. Now, history tells us that the Prophet advised them to move to Aksum, or if you like, Abyssinia, which is now known as Ethiopia. But by then, before the Berlin Conference, Ethiopia included Eritrea. That's why when we mention about the AD 45, AD 60 historical aspect, we mention periplus of the Eritrean Sea. That's how Indian Ocean used to be known, Eritrean Sea. So this immigration had two groups. The first one consisted of 12 men and 4 women. Among these 12 men included Uthman ibn Affan and his wife Ruqayya. They came to Ethiopia. There was Zubair bin Awam. There was Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Uthman ibn Mat'un, and Mus'ab ibn Umayr, among famous Sahabas. These people left for Abyssinia, or if you like Aksum, or if you like to call it Ethiopia, in the month of Rajab, 615 AD, that is 7th century, according to Gregorian calendar. The 5th year of the Prophet's mission, that's when they left and came to Ethiopia. Normally, this is where you find historians or those who lecture you on the historical aspect of Islam and Muslims, mentioning this story, trying to justify the issue or present proof that Islam moved to Africa from Mecca earlier than moving to Medina. This was the 5th year of the Prophet's mission. And Medina, it moved during the 13th year of the Prophet's mission. So Africa had Muslims long before Medina. And Medina is closer to Mecca than Abyssinia or Africa. They took a boat from a seaport of Shuaiba. That's where they took a boat. west of present-day Jeddah port, where the port of Jeddah is now, is west of Shuaibah, or Shuaibah is west of Jeddah, and sailed passing through the famous Dahlak Island to Zula seaport. Adjacent to an important commercial town of Adulis, and from Zula to Aksum, the capital of Aksum Kingdom, was a 5-day march from where they were. It took them 5 days to go to this place. After a few months, a second group of 83 men and 11 women left once again to come to Ethiopia. Totally, it was 110 companions of the Prophet who left Mecca to come to Ethiopia. These 83 men and women, 11 women who left in the second trip, were led by Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, who is a brother to Imam Ali alayhi salam and a cousin to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. So 94 people left for the second trip. The first was 16. The second trip was 94 people. Altogether, they make 110 Sahabas who came to Ethiopia. Ja'far bin Abi Talib, being the cousin of the Prophet, came with his wife Asma. And they came taking the sea route. Most of us don't learn this history in school, neither do we learn this history in madrasa. That 110 companions of the Prophet left Mecca, 5th year of prophethood, come to Africa, Ethiopia. These two groups consisted of key and da'wah committed persons who are also very close to the Prophet, factors that contributed greatly to the success of their mission in growing the seeds of spreading Islam in Ethiopia and beyond. Now remember, yesterday or day before yesterday, I mentioned to you about a research, a very latest research that tells us that the Swahilis are more deriving from the Asian and Persian lot of people who came to the East African coast than the Arabs. This is the latest report, scientific one. They've gone to an extent of even checking on the DNA of the elites of these places, East African coast, and see that no, just a point of correction. Arabs didn't play a major role in getting married to the Swahilis and getting kids with the Swahilis than the Asians and Persians. 90% it's Asia and Persia. 90%. Now, this background, historical background of what the companions and how the companions reached Ethiopia and why did they come to Ethiopia, bring us to the point of understanding what transpired for Allah to reveal the first five verses. I'm just giving you this background so that we get to Ja'far bin Abi Talib's statement when given a chance by Najash, the king of Ethiopia, to talk after the Quraysh had talked to the king. What was his statement? That will give us a picture of what transpired before the 5 verses were revealed. And that's where most of the people build their perspective upon the background to the revelation of the 5 verses. That because of what was transpiring in Mecca, this is what made Allah reveal these 5 verses to the Prophet. The 2 groups consisted of key and da'wah committed persons. Very soon the immigrants settled down in the new land under the care and protection of Najash, who was the king of Ethiopia, the just and righteous ruler of Abyssinia, as promised by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like, move to Ethiopia. The guy is not a Muslim. The king of this place is not a Muslim, but he'll do justice to you. You can practice Islam peacefully. Now, hikmah here is that the Prophet had never set foot in Ethiopia. But because of all this Salman Farsi, all this Ammar Yasir, all this Bilal, he knew much about Ethiopia. All this about Ashab al-Fil, and his father and grandfather, all this made him know much about Ethiopia before even he stepped into Ethiopia. But Muslims still don't know what transpired during those times. In Mecca, this migration started a great hue and cry for 2 good reasons. This of the companions moving to Ethiopia. Firstly, there was hardly any family of the Quraysh which did not lose a son, son-in-law, a daughter, a brother, or a sister. 110 people then were a big group of people from a small place like Mecca. Secondly, the Quraysh realized that the immigration of this elite group will definitely have a strong impact in Abyssinia, and their message shall attract new converts among the Abyssinians and beyond. And of course it did. Because this was the time that most of my people, like the coastal side of Kenya, Lamu and all this place, this is when Islam came in, between 7th and 8th century. Because most people were living under a kingdom known as Shungwaya Bantu Kingdom. This will be a threat to their own sovereignty, the Quraysh sovereignty. Hence the Quraysh sent 2 emissaries, Amr bin Abi al-As and Abdullah ibn Abi Taybiyah, to the Najash of Abyssinia with a message and some tokens. So corruption existed long ago. To persuade him to reject the Muslim immigrants as outlaws. Please give them back to us, take them back home and convict them. They came with some precious gifts to the Najash and for the courtiers of the Najash. To confound the accusation, the leader of the Muslim delegation, Ja'far bin Abi Talib, recited to the Najash the verse of the Quran which speak of Maryam. That is chapter 19, verse 16 to 24. This recitation convinced the Abyssinians that the Muslims had received a revelation akin to their own. Now, many people, because of not knowing this historical background, don't know what did Ja'far bin Abi Talib say to the king. And this is where most people don't know what transpired before Surah Al-Alaq. This is where we need to go back to and see what went on during those days for us to get to where we are. That's why I was trying to explain to you that some scholars translate Iqra as read, and some translate it as proclaim. And both are right, depending on justification, depending on substantiating why they believe this goes for proclaim or read. But let me just quote what Ja'far bin Abi Talib told Najash when given a chance. Like, okay, we've had the Quraysh. Now, I can't give you these guys without give them a chance to tell me their side of the whole story. So asked who would speak on your behalf, and they all said Ja'far bin Abi Talib. So when Ja'far stood up, this is what he said, and I quote, "O king, we were ignorant people, and we lived like wild animals." Very important statement. I'll build on this statement my substantive point on why we need to understand Al-Alaq better than what or how we do right now. O king, we were ignorant people and we lived like wild animals. These are very heavy words. Ja'far bin Abi Talib is telling Najash, king of Ethiopia, the strong among us lived by preying upon the weak. We obeyed no law and we acknowledged no authority save that of brute force. We worshipped idols made of stone or wood, and we knew nothing of human dignity. And then God, in His mercy, sent to us His messenger, who was himself one of us. We knew about his truthfulness and his integrity. His character was exemplary, and he was the most well-born of the Arabs. He invited us toward the worship of one God, and he forbade us to worship idols. He exhorted us to tell the truth and to protect the weak, the poor, the humble, the widows, and the orphans. I'll repeat this. We knew about his truthfulness and his integrity. His character was exemplary, and he was the most well-born of the Arabs. He invited us toward the worship of one God, and he forbade us to worship idols. He exhorted us to tell the truth and to protect the weak, the poor, the humble, the widows, and the orphans. He ordered us to show respect to women and never to slander them. We obeyed him and followed his teachings. Most of the people in our country are still polytheists, and they resented our conversion to the new faith, which is called Islam. They began to persecute us, and it was in order to escape from persecution by them that we sought and found sanctuary in your kingdom. End of quote. Now I build my subject on this part. He exhorted us to tell the truth. 1. And to protect the weak. 2. The poor. 3. the humble 4, the widows 5, and the orphans 6. Now it's 1,400 years and 40 since this was said. And this is the background to what transpired in Mecca for Allah to reveal the first 5 verses of Al-Alaq. That's why here comes the word Iqra, proclaim. In other words, go tell them. Qawlan sadida. Hit the bull's eye. Don't worry, Muhammad. Go tell them, and I'm your Rabb. In my name, use my name. Like Allah told me to come and tell you that this is not right what's going on. This is what made Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam go to Jabal Hira. What was happening in Mecca. Now 1,440 years after Quran had been revealed, I asked the same question. Isn't this what is going on within our communities at large? Do you see why I told you to talk about Al-Alaq? We need a whole month. Just Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq. Just that, leave alone Iqra wa rabbukal akram. No, wait. Just this, because we have to go to this background. Now look at it. Do we respect the poor? Do we respect women? Do we respect the humble, the weak? Do we serve them? Now, I don't care what community you're coming from, it's in all communities. We're still there. So we're talking Islam, we are not doing Islam. This is why I say institutes like masjids, like churches, like synagogues, like temples, give hope, not solutions. So what is the solution? When 1,440 years ago, the Prophet, we all knew that he fulfilled the promise he kept to Allah. He gave dignity to women. Why are they losing dignity now? 1,440 years after he succeeded. The poor, the widows, the orphans, where are these institutes that take care of them? Now you see, like, we entertain you guys. Sorry to say this, but this is what's happening. And most of the people who see it on the other side are used to, let's go and listen to this guy. Maybe he's different. We who sit on this side tell you what you love to hear. We then tell you what you are supposed to hear. Whether you like it or not, this is what you are supposed to hear. No. We just make our best, like, wow, so-and-so is there, so-and-so. Let me talk about hadith and ayahs that please them. So we start like, Kutiba alaykum as-siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. When it reaches the 27th or 26th, then we start ayahs about zakat, how much you should give, how you should give. Don't look back. When this hand gives, don't let this one know. And when you give us our envelopes, then darsa or the majalis is finished. Now we pray for you, long prayer, dua, it goes on. You just have to say, Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. But remember I said, lahu mu'aqibatun min bayni yadayhi wa min khalfihi yahfazuna min amrillah. How does Allah look at us who talk to you these things just to please you, to entertain you? What would be our reply when we meet Allah? I used to hold majlis like this, say, I saw you. My angels used to report about you daily, you and those who came to listen to you. But you did nothing. You didn't even open their minds, you to entertain them, let them pass time till they have to go back to the mosque and eat a little bit and then start fasting tomorrow morning. I was talking to a group of small girls today in the evening, Changombe. I was invited to go and speak to them, secondary school girls. My brother was there, and I started by asking them 2 questions that I had asked the boys last week. How many of you like movies? 3/4 of them just put up their hands like, yeah, we are here. And I said, okay, next question is, please don't feel shy. How many of you listen to modern music? Almost all of them. Then I started my topic. Like I told you the other day, I know the difference between old music and new music. I know the difference between old movies and new movies. And I can go back to 60s. And you'd bear witness with me that it's very different. Don't tell me the Indian songs that are being sung now go right like the Indian song that was sung by Muhammad Rafi and Lata Mangeshkar and Asha Bhosle. Do they sing the same words? Can you listen to these songs they're singing now with your kids? But can't you listen to Muhammad Rafi with your kids and tell them, please listen to word after word what he's saying? Sam, can you listen to what they are singing around now in Europe and what Elvis or Cliff Richard or Beatles used to sing? Next question is this a coincidence? So this time in Mecca, things were like this. No respect for women, no mercy for the orphans, for the widows. They were like, taka taka, you are nothing, just move out, let us pass through. So the Prophet was fighting this kind of life. Now the question is, don't we have the same kind of life now in our societies? Are we Muslims? Or we assume to be Muslims? How many of us, if I see the younger generation on this side and this side, how many of you have gone through single parenthood? Or a divorced household, dad and mom are no longer together? For how long has this been going on? How much damage did this do to your heart and mind? To an extent that it makes you a rebellious person who can't even explain why are you rebelling. And you have to keep the respect for mom and dad. You can't mention them to anyone when you think about what you're going through. So this is the community, this is the society, this is the generation that we are living with. And with a gap of 10 years, the 50-year generation, the 40, the 30, the 20, and the 10-year generation, we've lost it. Full of pretense. If you want them to do salam alaikum, salam alaikum, they do it. If you want them to be at home by 7, they'll be there by 6. But if they close the door, you don't know what's going on behind the door with phones. Some are addicted to pornography, some are addicted to music, some are addicted to funny movies full of crime, free sexual play, and drug abuse. That's the kind of movies they like to check. And they don't know what the movies do to them. because there are no institutes to tell them how to go about with these things. And that's globalization. That's free market. There are things that they sell them to you at lower prices than the things they give them free to you because they don't need them anymore. They know how much menace it has caused to their society, so they're bringing them to you. Why? Because of love? No. They want to take you the same moves, same steps that their society has gone through. So you check Rambo, you check Manchurian Candidate, you check these kind of movies, you like to act like them, you start crying. Some friends of mine, some 2-3 days ago, took me for a drive. So we passed through somewhere like Upanga, if I'm not wrong. A mosque nearby, but they were shocked to find a whole bunch of mothers and small young kids sleeping on pavements like they've never seen during the 60 years they've been living in Tanzania. Street families, like they've never seen before. Now, questions came now, where do they go to relieve themselves when they feel like? What would they do if rain starts pouring down right now? There's no place to go. All the houses have fences. Worst of all, what would they do if one loses control with a car and is speeding and he goes on top of them, all of them? But this now, it's a regional madness. It's in Mombasa, it's in Nairobi, families, street families. Street families are a menace to the society. But it's a message. What is it telling you? That you are disorganized as a society. That's why these people come to town and sleep by the roadside. And again, you like putting your hand in your pocket and giving 1,000 shillings, giving 500 shillings, thinking, mashallah, never look back on a poor guy. When you ask for, just give. But are you sure Allah would be annoyed if you institutionalize this thing? Like, don't sleep in the streets with kids. Please, if you are poor, come to this institute and someone will do something for you. Who is going to do this for us? Now, the younger generation on this side can think of what is to be done. Should come down and sit down, brainstorm, write down reports like this is what we think should be done. Do we need funding? Where do we find funding? And how can we go about it? How do we institutionalize this issue? Why do we talk about institutionalization? Because the Prophet did it. He went to a time when in Mecca or Medina, if he goes to someone and says, here's your peace. That guy says, Rasulullah, I'm okay. I feel like giving too. How did he achieve this? No one is telling us. We like talking about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, like he even had a carve up here because of, carrying things and knocking the door. When you open, you don't see who brought this thing for you. But we don't find Imam Hussein in ourselves. Muharram, we talk about him. But we don't learn from those happenings. We don't learn what happened to Imam Hussein and the family. We don't ask ourselves, can this happen to us during our time? If yes, what are we doing? Do we see Muawiyah now? We don't. And there are plenty of Muawiyahs. Some within the community, some outside the community. And who is our Hussein now? So we all listen to stories about Hussein, we cry about Hussein, but we don't strive to be like Hussein. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with being like Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Who's stopping us from being like Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Can anyone tell me, no, the government doesn't like us to be like this? I'd say no. They need Hussein now. Even the government needs Imam Hussein now. But do we know Imam Hussein really? Now, these issues, when I try to talk about them to you, this is what I mean. When I say, like Al-Alaq, we need to understand this thing and go into the human body. This is what I mean, because this is what was happening. Now then, Allah brings in a prophet, like, okay, let me use this person to change the situation. What we need to do is be like the prophet. No more wahi, no more nothing, but let's try to be like him. At least to come to halfway. When we try to be like him or go beyond what he was, then we'd come halfway. If we say we can't be like him, this is the situation. We'd always be like this. We'd always be on the other side like, no, we are Africans, that's why the Khojas don't like us. No, Khojas are Khojas, Africans are Africans. Why don't we positively look at the Khojas and be like them? These are the issues. Why can't we institutionalize and give, let's say we want Majlis for Muharram. Why can't we give the little we have and then go to the Khojas like, this is what we could come up with, could you please add something little on it? Why do we go to them and ask them, can you please let us do Muharram too? What's wrong with us? I'm telling you because I know in Mombasa and all these places, most of these people don't give a single shilling. And they like to do Muharram, but they like to be funded. Don't you like to fund Imam Hussein's Muharram? Do you know the advantage of funding it yourself with the little you have? What weakens us is globalization. This is the negative side of globalization. The positive side is staying number one as we were before the Europeans come to our proximity. We are a very generous people, Africans, a very dignified people, respected people, society. What made us be what we are today? It's because we don't know our history. And I said this and I repeat, if anyone wants to be overhead, if anyone wants to rule you, it's so simple. It just moves away your historical aspect. You don't see it, you don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. So you come down and you'll always be relying on them to tell you who you are. Now here in Tanzania, you are far much ahead because most of you don't like to check one another as per ethnic background, color of your skin. You've advanced on that stage. You live like brothers, different from Uganda, different from Kenya. Kenya, we are ethnicized. We are in the same category, Muslims, But if you come 1, 2, 3, someone, nice buys, you are drinking, Sheikh Kabila Gani. This is the next question. Tell him, oh, okay. So you're from this place, eh? Okay. And then the story goes off there. And you'll never see him again. Maybe you are the tribe he doesn't like, coming close to. Don't follow into that trap, We need to come up with a think tank. We talk these things up, but globalization is not that simple. Its effect is either positive or negative depending on how you understood the whole aspect of globalization. What good can it do to you? It's good, it's economic. Okay, what business can we do? Technological, what technology should it? How many professionals in this technology do we have? Societal, what can we say no to and what can we say yes to as far as globalization is concerned? There's the maritime thing. There are guys from Korea and China coming to fish around our waters. It's about 200 billion shillings, Kenyan money, we lose every year. 200 billion. Just through, what do you call this? Jodari tuna fish. 200 billion Kenya loses every year to Koreans and Chinese vessels that come to fish in high waters. Just because fishermen don't have the equipment to go to these high waters, deep waters. These guys come with computerized ships. They choose what kind of fish they want to fish. If they find something not good, they just let it go. So when it comes to the economical aspect of globalization, how ready are we? What kind of business would we do? The dollar is soon losing its value. Where are we? Look at Tanzania with all the mineral resources. Alhamdulillah, the Khoja community, you know how much economy you have in your hands in as far as economy is concerned in Tanzania. But do we learn from you guys? Or is it like Kenya, we go for blind Africanization? How long would we be blinded by this Africanization? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. Waj'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu. Inna akramakum 'inda Allah atqakum. How do we understand these verses? So Islam came from zero. Islam came to fight these things about poverty, about weakness, humbleness of some people. It came to sort of revolutionize thinking. Came to fight for human rights for widows, women, orphans, physically challenged. Now, where are we in these things? Do we fight for them too? Or we've left them to suffer their own life, How long will it take us to come back to sense again? How long will it take us for us to wake up and start doing Islam instead of just talking Islam? That's why Quran asks us, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Why do you say what you don't do? You say you are Muslim, why don't you do Islam? Kabura maktan inda Allah an taqulu ma la taf'alun. It's an abomination now for you to say towards Allah what you don't do. Who are you trying to fool? Allah? No. He's told you, you have angels in front and behind. They are marking down whatever you do, say, think. He has complete records of what you do, of your life. You cannot lie to him. Now we need to sort of wake up. We need to put sense. I go back to the same word I repeat. We need to be conscious of Allah. For us to be acting Islam, for us to be practicing Islam, for us to be doing Islam than just talking Islam. We need to come out of this giving hope and instead give solutions to our problem. This is what I leave with you tonight. I thank you very much for attending this lecture. Inshallah, let's pray for one another. Tomorrow is another day. Inshallah, we'll meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.